Imagine this, a queen, draped in silk, adorned with gold, riding her horse across the desert, stood tall against the most powerful empire in the world, Rome. And for a brief moment, she almost won. This is the story of Zenobia of Palmyra, the queen who shook the Roman Empire, who defied emperors, who conquered lands from Egypt to Anatolia, and came within reach of building her own empire. But to truly understand her rise, you need to picture the world she lived in. The 3rd century was chaos for Rome. Emperors were assassinated one after another, the frontiers were under attack, and plague and famine ravaged the people. Rome was bleeding, weakened from within and without, and in this vacuum of power, new rulers were daring to dream bigger. Far out in the Syrian desert, Palmyra stood like a jewel, an oasis city, lined with marble streets, columns that pierced the sky, and temples shining under the desert sun. Caravans carrying silk from China, gems from India, spices from Arabia, all passed through Palmyra. It was a city of immense wealth, but it was also a city on the edge of 2 worlds, Rome in the west, Persia in the east. Into this place was born Zenobia, and she wasn't just another noble woman. Ancient accounts say she could speak 4 languages fluently: Egyptian, Greek, Latin, and Aramaic. She rode horses like a warrior, hunted in the desert like a seasoned soldier, and carried herself with a mix of intelligence and charisma that few men, let alone women, could match. Her marriage to Odaenathus, the ruler of Palmyra, would change everything. Together, they became a power couple unlike any other. When Persia invaded Rome's eastern provinces, Odaenathus didn't wait for Roman help. He struck back. His armies crushed the Persians, restored Roman authority, and for a time made Palmyra the shield of the East. And by his side, watching and learning, was Zenobia. But power is a dangerous gift. In 267 AD, Odaenathus was assassinated. The details are a mystery. Was it political rivals? Was it betrayal from within his own family? Historians still argue, but what is certain is this: the man who held Palmyra's strength together was gone. The crown now rested on the head of a child, Vabalithus, Odaenathus' son, and with him, his mother Zenobia. Most women in her position would have stepped aside, ruled quietly as regent, and waited for Rome's approval. But Zenobia was different. She did not step aside. She stepped forward. She wore the crown herself. Officially, she claimed she ruled only for her young son, but everyone knew the truth. She was the real power in Palmyra, and she was not content with survival. She had far bigger dreams. Zenobia built an army filled with loyal generals and hardened desert warriors. She fortified her cities. She poured her wealth into soldiers, weapons, and horses. She wanted Rome to recognize her as an equal, not a servant. In 270 AD, she made her boldest move. She invaded Egypt. Think about what that means. Egypt was not just any Roman province. It was the empire's breadbasket. Rome's grain supply depended on Egypt's harvest. Whoever controlled Egypt held Rome by the throat. Zenobia's generals stormed Alexandria, the jewel of the Nile. Within months, Egypt was hers. Rome's lifeline was now in the hands of a queen from the desert, and she didn't stop there. With Egypt secured, her armies marched north into Anatolia. City after city submitted to her rule. From the sands of Arabia to the mountains of Turkey, Zenobia's banners flew high. At its height, her empire stretched across Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, parts of Turkey, and Egypt. Nearly a quarter of Rome's eastern territories had fallen under her control, and Zenobia ruled not as a Roman governor or caretaker, but as a sovereign monarch. Coins were minted bearing the image of her son Vabalithus, but always with her authority behind him. In public, she dressed like a pharaoh. In regal Egyptian style, she wore the diadem of a Roman empress. She presented herself not as a client of Rome, but as a queen of the East. Her message was clear. Rome had a rival now, but Rome was not about to stay silent. That same year, a new emperor rose to power in the West, Aurelian. He was a soldier emperor, hardened by campaigns, ruthless and efficient. His goal was simple: restore Rome's fading glory. And when he heard of Zenobia's empire, he knew he had to crush it. Aurelian marched east with his legions, and the collision was inevitable. Rome against Palmyra. Zenobia was ready. She rallied her people, giving fiery speeches that made soldiers swear to fight to the death. She strengthened Palmyra's defenses, built alliances, and trusted in her swift cavalry. Desert horsemen who could strike like lightning and vanish into the sands. The battles were fierce. Palmyrene forces struck hard, ambushing Roman columns and using the desert to their advantage. For a moment, it looked as if Zenobia might hold her ground. But Rome's power was relentless. Aurelian's legions pushed forward, grinding down her defenses. City after city fell. Rome's iron discipline clashed with Palmyra's desperate courage. Finally, the Romans reached Palmyra itself. Zenobia refused to give in. She fled eastward, racing across the desert, hoping to reach Persia and rally support. If she could bring Persian allies into the war, perhaps the tide could turn. But Rome was faster. Near the Euphrates, Zenobia was captured. The desert lioness, chained. Palmyra's dream of empire was shattered. Aurelian crushed the city, destroyed its monuments, and erased its independence. What had once seemed like the rival to Rome was reduced to rubble. And yet, Zenobia's personal fate remains shrouded in mystery. Some say Aurelian paraded her through the streets of Rome in golden chains, showing the world that even the proudest queen could be humbled. But witnesses wrote that even in captivity, she carried herself with unshaken pride, a prisoner who still looked like a queen. Others say Aurelian spared her, granting her a villa near Rome, where she lived out her years in comfort, even marrying into Roman nobility. And some whisper that she refused to live as a captive at all, starving herself to death to escape Rome's humiliation. The truth? Lost to history. But one thing is certain: Zenobia's legacy did not die with her empire. She became a symbol of rebellion, courage, and ambition, a woman who dared to stand against the greatest empire of her time. The historian Edward Gibbon would later write, "Zenobia was the most illustrious of all the female characters of antiquity." So picture her again, a queen in the desert, crowned with ambition, riding against the mightiest empire of her age. For a moment, she bent history itself. Rome destroyed her empire, but her defiance still echoes, because the greatest stories are not always about those who win. Sometimes they are about those who dared to fight.